I don't know if y'all have attended, different training sessions like this. I've attended several. And when I planned this out, I'm thinking, we can go through PowerPoints all day, but I have a feeling that's not what you're here to do, Yeah. But the goal of this class is to equip you guys to do your position, to be better at your position in your ministry, and in turn, to be more efficient, to be more knowledgeable, and so the way we're going to structure this class is, before lunch, the first half of the day, we're going to go through topics in a channel strip, from top down. So that makes sure you guys understand, everything in there. And then, of course, interject me if you have questions at any point of time, and that's because that's what this is for. Then we're going to have lunch at noon, and then the second half, I'm thinking I'm going to open it up for hands-on. We have one of our church services. We recorded it multi-track, and then we can send it back to the console. And then each of us can take turn. You want to practice mixing vocal, mixing any particular instruments, choir, whatever, And that way, because this is like our, it's very rare when you get a chance to do that. In the middle of a service, you can't be playing around with different features, So this, so take advantage of that, today. Ask questions, and certainly position yourself where you can see everything well. Please, when you get a chance to see Pastor or Daniel, thank them for allowing this to happen. I think they've really stepped up in allowing a whole day of the facility, being used for, to do this, and we're going to do more of this in the future, and certainly I welcome your feedback as to what area you want to go into more on the next ones, All right. So just by a show of hands, how many of you are currently operating in front of a mixing console on a weekly basis? 1, 2. Okay. Just, you too. So just about basically everybody then, right? So, the first thing that you're going to see in a typical mixing console are gain or trim. They're in a digital console. Sometimes they call it trim, but it's the gain. Usually, it's the first thing you see on an analog console up top. And anybody know what that is? Yeah, what is a gain? Okay. Anybody else? Horsepower. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Okay. I'll look at it this way. The gain for that channel is it's the first stage of, like, if it's your water main in your house, right? How much of that water you're going to let into the house, right? So if your gain is too low, then there's the flow that goes into your house or into that channel or into that mixing console is very little, and then that's why I like the term gain staging. Okay, every stage of that console, there are additional gains. Like, for example, at the very top you have the gain or the trim, which is right here, right? Usually it flows into an equalizer section, right? But in an equalizer section, there are additional gains in there. It divides the whole spectrum from low to high. Just, like in your car, you have your bass and treble control. That's basically a two-band equalizer. It divides the spectrum. All the lows control is a volume control for the low end and a volume control for the high, right? So let's say in your car, if you take, in here there's 4 bands, okay? There are 4 bands in here, but let's say if it's a two-band stage, like in the car, you have your low boost, low cut, and high boost, high cut, right? So what do people do typically on a stereo system? They boost the highs, they boost the lows. That right there, right? That's typically like because the reason being, the reason why we tend to do that is what you call the Fletcher-Munson curve. Our ears are more attuned to these frequencies right here, around 800 to 4K. Okay, 800 hertz to 4,000 hertz. That's about where our ears are very sensitive to. So what we're not sensitive to are the lows and the highs. That's why we tend to want to do that when we, But of course, us being an audio practitioner, we don't want to just immediately every channel you're going to do that, right? You're going to have catastrophic results. Imagine if you have a lavalier mic like mine. This is my channel right now that I'm talking to. Imagine if you start adding all these extra highs, right? So equalizer. There are typically in an equalizer, each band there are 3 components that we need to know. The Q, right here. Q is the bandwidth. So let's see here. Okay, let's take the high band for example. Okay, I'm gonna use the high band as an example because it's not being used right now, right? How do you know it's not being used? Because the gain is at 0. That means it's not being boosted or it's not being cut. Okay, so 3 components in here: the Q, the frequency, and the gain. Okay. Gain is a volume control. Adding, subtracting. Okay? Adding, subtracting. Frequency. Frequency determines at what frequency do you want the center of that particular action, whether it's a boost or a cut. What frequency do you want to boost or what frequency do you want to cut? Okay? So, with frequency, you can sweep it. This is what you call a parametric EQ, an EQ that you can sweep. Okay? There's another kind of EQ, which is the one with all the sliders, 31 band sliders up and down. Okay? They have a fixed center frequency, but we'll go through that later. But so on the frequency, you can determine what you want to boost or what you want to cut. Like right now, you can sweep it all the way down, right? So the fact that this is called the high band, on this console, what I like about it is they're all 20 to 20, 20 hertz to 20K. So you can choose this high band to deal with some lows if you have to. Or if this is something that, a channel, like for example, like a trumpet channel, there's not a whole lot of lows. But you need a more detailed work in the highs. You can use all 4 bands in different frequencies in the highs. Because all you have to do is sweep them, right? And then do your boost or your cut. Now, of course, typically, you notice on the spectrum, it's a logarithmic scale. So toward the highs, there are more frequencies in each octave than in the lows, right? Because each octave is a doubling of each other. So So basically on the highs, typically I would want to reduce that bell width, and that's done in the Q. Okay? If you reduce the Q, then you can pinpoint just the frequency that's problematic. Okay? So for example, let's say right now, and this also goes into ring outs. Check 1, 2. So this channel right here is my temporary mic. The original one is over here. So in case because we're about to muck with it and get it all weird. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to flatten this EQ that I have, and let's see if we can get it to feedback a little bit. Hey, 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 hey. Okay. The goal of equalization or maximum or ring outs, or you're trying to maximize intelligible audio or on that mic from that output. That means you want to weed out what does not need to be there. Okay? The first thing you're going to notice is or the first thing you need to realize is, human voice doesn't go far below 160, 170 hertz, right? Those are reserved for bass drums. I mean, bass guitars, bass drums, low instruments. So first thing you want to do is get rid of all that rumble, okay? Because, as a matter of fact, that mic will produce a lot better. What you call it? I'm gonna pull that mic over here. See? Hear that? So, when somebody talks on the mic and you hear all that, you don't want to do that, right? So I specifically left this wide open right now, which is, let me see here. So first thing you want to do, get rid of all this low. Using what we call the HPF, which is high pass filter. You let the highs pass, you filter the low, HPF. HPF is, in some consoles, it's called LF, which is low filter. You want to filter the low, you let the high, so it's the same term, right? High pass filter or low filter. Basically, you want to get rid of the lows. In some consoles, it is fixed. Sometimes, like in a Mackie, it's fixed at 75 hertz. In a better console, you can sweep up and determine where that cut off, that frequency that you want to cut off. So, see this section right here, the high pass filter. Every console is going to be a little bit different, but you can sweep up and determine how far up is the cutoff point, and if you take it all the way up, it's going to be really thin. But now you don't have that rumble anymore. So it's a matter of balancing. You probably want it a little bit lower to get a little bit more fuller sound. But at some point, you don't want it to be too bassy. When they on the plosives. So that's probably a good point to start right there. That's about 200 hertz. The first thing I do when I set up a console, when I go in and set up a mic, usually lead mics, I'll high pass it around 180, right there. Check 1, 2, and then the background vocals, the praise team, I can usually sweep it a little bit higher, maybe around 300. Check 1, 2, so because that way the lead vocal is fuller and the background is just a slight bit thinner, but it saves you because here's the thing. There's this invisible feedback threshold, okay? There's an invisible feedback threshold that exists every time you amplify a signal and you have a microphone, right? Does anybody know what a feedback is? I know you've heard it, but does anybody know what phenomenon is that? Anybody want to volunteer? Okay, Okay, a feedback, look, but by raise of hands, you guys know what a feedback is, though, right? Yeah, okay. So, a feedback is when something is amplified through a microphone and through an amplifier, put out through a speaker, and it reaches a certain threshold that it gets picked back up by the mic. That gets amplified again and gets picked back up again, and that's a feedback loop. Okay? And when you start bringing up volume, the nonlinearities of the speaker and the mic, because you notice the mic it accentuates certain frequencies and it decreases certain frequencies. It's not completely flat, right? That's why we have an equalizer. That's why the term equalizer. When it's not equal, you use an equalizer to make it equal, to make frequency response as flat as possible. Okay? Because when it's not flat, when you start bringing up the gain on that particular channel, whatever's sticking out, whatever frequencies that are sticking out, that's what's going to feed back first. Okay? So the terms ringing out a monitor or ringing out a house system is you're taking a mic, you're cranking it up slowly, you get a feedback, you find that frequency, you bring that down until that frequency is gone, and then you determine, is this loud enough? If it's not loud enough, then you want to bring it up a little bit more, and then you will get some more feedback frequencies, find those, notch it down. Hopefully at the end, you're going to end up with a flat magnitude response of the mic. Right? Now, there is also a point of diminishing return in equalizing. Because after you start cutting, the more you cut, you lose some gain, right? Because when you cut, that's a gain down of that frequency. When you have too many cuts, and because I've seen systems where you have these 10 dB notches, in these channels. When you think about it, technically that's the same as not doing those notches, but just turning it down. Because at some point you're losing the gain, so you have to gain it up again, and then you're back to where you started. So usually practice. The main thing is this: now with the advent of these digital devices, go into your church or go into wherever you can practice on top of the board, maybe in the middle of the week, right? Set you up a simple speaker or a floor monitor with a mic, and just start practicing and start getting your ears accustomed to where these frequencies are, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you this. You don't have to be a Jedi Master. And there are guys like that. I'll be the first one to tell you, I am not one of those Jedi Masters that can hear, okay, that's 240. There are people like that. I'm not, okay? Now, there are hopes. There's hope for people like us. Some people have that kind of ear, right? It's good to start training your ear to know at least what range of frequency that is. That way you're not like all over the place. Oh, okay, I don't know where that is, but you know what? I'm just going to sweep all the way up and down, to try to find it. Well, if it's clearly a higher frequency, it's not going to be way down here. It's going to be somewhere here. So we need to know where those about where, so that way it'll be quicker for you to reach your destination, to reach your targeted frequencies, right? So, yep, hey, ha. Okay, there you go. So, ringing out, ha, ha, ha. You start bringing it up, and you hear that, ooh, ha, ha. There are several ways to do this. First way, ha. Because I've done this several times, I kind of know, okay, that's going to be somewhere around the 1K area. But You can sweep it. While you're still practicing, just go ahead and sweep it. So here's the thing, though. If you want to fish out a certain frequency, you don't know what it is. You want to fish it out. Get your pick one of the bands that's closest to where you think it might be, right? So I'm going to pull this high mid right here, right? You boost it a little bit, but be ready. If it starts taking off, be ready to pull it down. Okay? So, hey, 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 hey. Gone. Right? So, again, I just heard another one, but we'll deal with that on a, So that's why you have several bands. So, first thing, okay, do it again. Ha, ha, 1, 2, ha, ha, ha. Now, you want to chase that high one? Ha, ha. Right there. All you have to do is boost it a little bit. Check, 1, 2. It's safer. Before, ha, ha, ha. Okay? And then there's right there in the low. Ha, 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 ha. Is that what you heard? Ha, ha. And then bring it down. And then I hear the right there. You can grab the low mid. Clean. Ha, ha, 1, 2. So now you can get a lot louder than before because of all these cuts. Okay? Ha, 1, 2. Ha, ha. And then be listening. Ha, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey. It's actually that. It's like really loud. Ha. You probably don't need to get that loud, but who knows, right? Maybe you do. Maybe you mix for Kurt. I didn't say Kurt who, okay? So, let me see here. Check, 1, 2. Hey, 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 hey. Now I'm hearing that, high pressure in the upper mid area. I sound like a weatherman, don't I? Ha, ha. So let me see what's not used. This guy's not used. I can use that. Ha, 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 ha. Much better. Hey, 1, 2. 1, 2. Right? Without it. Hey, 1, 2. 1, 2. Hey, hey, hey. That's without it. Hey, 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 hey. 1, 2. Check. Right? Right. So any questions so far about what we just did?
Why does it change over time? Why do things change?
It can change a little bit. Okay. The change in frequency response over time is attributed to air pressure, temperature, because sound travels based on air molecules bumping into each other and pushing each other. And so if you start out, you tune your system and the air is dry and cold, right? Then the high frequency doesn't travel so much, right? When you have have you ever been in a cold desert? It's at night in Vegas for some reason, it's sound doesn't. It's harder for sound to travel because it's drier, right? There's no medium for the sound wave, or less medium for the sound wave to travel, because there's less air molecule, less moisture in the air. So you start out like that, you tune your system one way, or in church, for example, you tune your system, in the heat of the afternoon without the AC, and then when people start showing up, the temperature comes down, and then combined with there are more congregations, all of a sudden, where you had all this bouncing in the walls, and then you have all these high frequencies, all of a sudden the bodies absorb. These are bags of water, basically. You're putting all these bags of water all over the seats, right? So you're absorbing all of that sound. So take that into account, know what the condition of your room is when you're tuning a system, to know that, okay, there are not a lot of people here right now. Maybe I don't want to crank it up so loud. Because if I do, and I'm hearing all these feedbacks, I'm notching all kinds of frequencies, when the people show up, it's going to sound really dark. Because all of a sudden, where the sound that I heard before the people show up has changed. So again, temperature, humidity plays a big factor.
How do we do that without making it a disaster?
Okay. Which is why it's important. Practice makes perfect, or practice makes better, right? So it's very important for us to be able to get some time on a console, right? I have done sweeps in the middle of services if I have to. I just don't boost as loud. Like for example, hey, right here. If there's something going on right here and I'm hearing and I want to know, I just boost just a little bit. Okay, and I can hear it. Okay, it's right there. Kill it, right there. Hey, 1, 2, right? So you're going to start with the gain at 0, and then you boost a little bit, and then and then the person keeps talking. So it's like, oh no, that's not it. That's not it. I'm gonna. There you go, right there. You hear that? Yeah. Well, I'm looking this way. I'm like, my orientation is there. I thought I'm cutting, but yeah. But when you hear that, just boost just a little bit. I mean, it's going to be ugly for just a little, but sometimes the audience doesn't really know what that is. I mean, it's that's what I call a flirting frequency. It's not quite a feedback yet, but it's flirting with you, right? It's right there. You hear it right there. So fish it out. Just boost a little bit. As the person's talking. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you hear it, Immediately after you hear it, try to cut. And then if it goes away, then that's it, right? That way you can crank up more, And that right there is a process that to me is the key, one of the most important skill to develop as a sound engineer. EQing. You live and die by EQing. Okay? Now I'm going to go later on. I'm going to show that when you start dealing with room tuning, you have to know, okay, what to EQ, what not to EQ, room modes and all that. But right now, as an operator, as a sound operator, you need to know that down pat. Again, you don't have to know what frequency that is. Just boost a little bit, sweep it, cut it. And then when you cut it, you determine, okay, is that a wide enough Q, a wide enough bandwidth, or do I need to widen it out a little bit? Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong band. Right here. Do I need to widen it out? In general, let me tell you this. In general, a wider Q, yes, you think that it affects more frequencies, but it results in a smoother sound. It results in a more natural sound. It's not a scoop, right? It's not like you're taking a big chunk of that meat out, but, you're doing a gentle slope down, a gentle slope up. And then later on, you'll see it's actually less of, it creates less of a minimum phase, less of a phase in every time you introduce a filter in something, you're introducing some phasing. Because the way EQ achieves the boost and cut on a specific frequency is actually through phasing. Now I know we haven't gone through what phasing is, but okay. But are we good on this right now? And again, once we start getting on the console, we can go back to these equalizer concepts. Oh, you know what? We're not done with EQ. So you know about the high pass filter, right? And has anybody asked, is there such thing as a low-pass filter? Right? So, yes, a low-pass filter means it passes the lows, it halts the highs, right? Why would you use a low-pass filter? No, a low-pass filter. That means you're letting the rumbles go. You're cutting the highs. So the rumbles is not used for a low-pass filter. Some instruments, right. Instruments that doesn't go that high. One use for it is if you are EQing a subwoofer. If you have a three-way system, high, mid, low. Now the low, you don't want the low to also be doing some mid that is conflicting with the mid driver. So you would want to do a low-pass filter. And the way to achieve that in here is what they give you on the high band, they give you this low-pass filter mode. You can enable that. And then on the frequency, you can sweep it down. So now it's letting the low passes. Okay? It's letting the low passes and it's killing the highs. Okay? That's a low pass filter. So on these parametric EQs, they give you on the low and the high, they give you either a shelving, a bell, or a filter. Okay? Here are the difference. We just saw this is a filter type, right? It filters what doesn't belong there. Here on up is gone, right? That's a filter type. Let's go to shelving type. This is a shelving. A shelving is more like how a treble or a bass EQ in a two-band car stereo works. It's a shelf. So it boosts from here on up in somewhat of a linear fashion. You can adjust the Q of that. You can adjust how steep that is. But basically it will boost or it will cut in that regard. Okay? It kind of looks like a shelf. That's what you call it. It's a shelving EQ. And that's over here. So it boosts from here on up. And then most of the time what I use, I don't like, sometimes if I can't handle it with the bell curve, then yeah, I'll use a shelving. But most of the time, I just want to affect a certain range of frequency. I don't want it to sometimes I don't want to deal with the air band, what I call the air band, the 12K on up. I just want to deal with the S-iness of the person when they say S and it gets real sharp. So I would use a bell curve, which means turning off that, it's off, it's in bell mode. And why they call it bell? Because it looks like a bell right there, right? It has a center frequency, it has a width, it has gain. Those are the three dimensions. And now you hear that. So now I just handle the S-iness, but it only affects that frequency and just a little bit of the ones around it. I mean, you can cue it really tight, but then you may not affect all the frequencies that you need to, So that if you need to get really surgical, you can cue it really, really tight like that. But usually, you want it just a little bit wider. And then when you cut, know how much to cut. That's a feeling thing. Don't just when you start cutting and you start doing like that. That really kills the sound. I mean, you lose a whole lot of intelligibility when you do that. So just cut in the amount that you need until it sounds natural, then leave it. Okay? So the mechanism of that would be find the frequency, cut it. You hear that? I boost it, feedback, cut it. Check 1, 2. Okay, that felt a little dark, so I'm going to bring it back a little bit. Check 1, 2. Right? So, and see this? What does that tell you? I need to high pass it a little higher. Right? Check 1, 2. Much cleaner. Yeah. So, typically on a handheld mic, on stage, when somebody's setting up a handheld mic, if I hear a high-end feedback, okay, I understand. Yeah, you're still working on it. But if I hear like a subwoofer type feedback, that should never happen, because the first thing you need to do, if it's a handheld mic, high pass it to 180 or 200, right? It does not need to feedback that low. I mean, the human voice does not go that low, unless you're miking a djembe. Okay, so we went through high pass filter, all these different bands, and so all of this combined with the gain, I found most of the time will suffice. Now, there are other tricks that we're going to go through this afternoon to get you even more volume than this. So right now we're clean, right? But there are artists or talents that's going to ask you, no, give me more than that, right? So like, so you have no choice, right? They pay your paycheck, so you have to give them more. But giving them more can mean you have to EQ some more. But you're out of bands right now, right? So what you do? Some of us that have seen my setup, Aubrey, Mike, you guys seen what I call the mux, right? Which is, it's a multiplex. It's a way to split the signal. One goes to the output uninhibited. The other one gets compressed, condensed, pureed, and then meets the uncompressed in the output. And what that does is it gives you more presence. Okay? It gives you more apparent loudness. Okay. First of all, you know what? No, let's go through compression first. Because, I mean, there's no point to explain parallel compression if we haven't explained what compression is. So, okay, let's go back. Compression. On this console, they give you two dynamics modules. Dynamics modules are tools to control dynamics, which is, you know, when something is very dynamic, means sometimes it's soft, sometimes it's loud. Well, sometimes, you know, you want to even that out, right? You can't just, when somebody's soft and then you boost them and then they get really loud, okay, and then all of a sudden you're clipping your amps, right? So you want to be able to bring the soft part louder and bring the loud part softer. Control the dynamics. Well, the tool that we use for that is called a compressor. Compresses, right? So let's pull this up. There are 4 in here. They give you 4 different type of dynamics. Let's go through the most common one first, which is a compressor. Okay. It gives you a graphical representation of the signal. All right, let's go through what these guys are. Okay? Threshold is just like the name says. I mean, it's a point where something starts happening, right? That's what threshold is. That's what. So signal comes in, there's in and out. In the level comes in, the level comes out. Okay, in that compressor. Let's turn that compressor on. So right now seems like the signal, which is my voice, is uninhibited, right? The amount that comes in is the same as the amount that comes out. It just passes through. Why? Because right now the threshold is above the signal. It hasn't started compressing yet. Threshold in the compressor is the point at which the compressor starts working. Okay? So, what do? You bring that threshold down until it starts to meet the signal. So, let me see how far I need to bring that down. I'm going to bring this threshold down. Check 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. There. You see the gain reduction meter right there? That means at that point, see, like there's about 6 dB of gain reduction going right there. Means this is the signal level. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Let's see. Signal level is right here, and you start bringing it down until it touches it at the very top. It just kind of barely skims the top. And then if you really crank it down, you're going to squash it. It will start attenuating or reducing the signal. And then if you really, really crank it down, 1, 2, 1, 2, it really squashes it out, right? You lose a whole lot of volume. So you want to manage, your threshold, and so that's what. Okay, first of all, that's what a threshold is. It's where this thing starts happening. If your signal is down here, threshold's up here, then if you want to compress it, you want to slowly bring it down until it reaches that point where it's achieving the result that you want. Right now, I don't think this is if you really want to tame something down, you can do that and then make it up with the output gain. So, okay, let's just go through ratio first. Okay, let me bring the threshold back up so you can hear me. Hey, 1, 2. All right. Ratio is the first number and the second number. First number is the how many dBs that are coming in. Second number is how many dBs are going out. Okay, so a 1-to-1 ratio means it's not going to ever compress. I don't care how many, because 1 dB in, 1 dB out. 10 dB in, 10 dB out. That's just a pass-through, straight wire, right? So where you want to start compressing is you're going to start cranking up on the ratio. 1.3, 1.5, 2-to-1. 2-to-1 ratio means 2 dB in, 1 dB out. That means it's going to cut it by half. Anything comes in, it gets cut by half. Hey, 1, 2. Hey, 1, 2. Now, there's also the term limiter. A limiter is the same as a compressor, but with the ratio of infinity to 1. What infinity to 1 means is it's a brick wall. That's a brick wall right there. So with a brick wall is, I don't care how many dB comes in, it's going to stay at that wall, right? You're limiting. A lot of times this is used before the amplifier stage, so that when you're dealing with a DJ that does not know how to stop cranking up, you put a limiter on it. Now, let me digress a little bit. Sometimes, a singer will say, you put a compressor on me, right? So they don't like that because it makes them work harder, right? They're trying to achieve that level in their ear, but it gets limited. So on that note, or preachers, yes, yeah. So on that note, you guys, my thing is this: know where your amplifier and your speaker, setting is, limit is. If you have to put a compressor or put a limiter on it, then by all means. But really know your compressor so that you can give them the best tonality possible while still protecting your equipment. Okay? So if infinity to 1 sounds like well, maybe you need to reduce the ratio. My personal favorite in a lot of things, unless you can use a compressor for a bunch of things. You can use it for dynamics taming, or you can use it for effect. Like, for example, if you're trying to achieve more smack out of a kick drum, you can use a compressor. That's a different use altogether, and we'll try that later. But right now, if you're trying to tame down a signal, whether it's microphone, whether it's somebody playing keyboard, that is sometimes soft, sometimes hard, guitar plucks that is like really wild, things like that. I usually like a low ratio, less than 2 to 1, maybe 1.5 to 1. 1.7 to 1. Hey, 1, 2. But let it live in that compression right there. As somebody's talking, hey, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2. That's without it, right? Hey, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2. Check 1, 2. It's more tame. Now, after you do that, and the signal is living in that compression with that low ratio, then if you need more volume, use the out gain. So basically, after it compresses, it squashes it a little bit, then you can bring the whole thing up using the out gain. Hey, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2. Yep, hey, 1, 2. So now you're kind of achieving dynamics reduction and then bring everything up. So you're bringing the soft parts up, you're bringing the loud parts down, and in a more controlled fashion. Okay? Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. That's without it. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Hey, that's with it. It's about equally as loud, but it's more controlled rather than this right here. Right? So, attack and release. Those are the next component in a compressor. Attack is how fast the compressor grabs it. Release is how fast the compressor let it go after it reaches the threshold. Okay? And then, so the unit is in milliseconds on attack and release. Knee. Sometimes you wonder, it's like, what is a knee? Well, in that curve, in that XY axis curve, the knee determines how abrupt the action happens. So there's in the compressor, there's a term called hard knee. That's a hard knee right there. So it looks like it's a hard knee, right? A soft knee would be like that. Okay? So sometimes you want to use a hard knee for like a kick drum, right? Typically with percussive instruments, if you want to achieve a certain effect, you want to smack. That's a hard knee sound. Let's try it. That's a gate. This compressor right here. Soft knee has a hard knee. Soft knee, hard knee. Yeah.
I can't tell the difference. What do you hear different?
It's the way it smacks it. It has a softer. That one's softer. This one's ruder. Right? This smacks less. This one smacks more. You hear it? It takes some getting used to. is a hard knee. See the plugs? Without it, the plugs is really piercing. It's like real piercing. It softens it. Right? So you can use a compressor, or you can use an EQ to get rid of that piercing upper mid. So with something like that, you need a fast attack. That's why I put because if you slow it down, a slow attack means it lets that transient pass through. Okay, like in a kick drum. If you slow up the attack, that's without it. Imagine, okay, so once I put this in, it gives you more attitude on the kick. You hear that? Right? So sometimes with the kick, I like a little slower attack. I'm going to let the initial transit comes through, and then I squash it on the back end. So it gives you that punchiness. Go, something like that. And then adjust the release time to see how much of that, how long it takes for the compressor to let it go. If it's too long, then it doesn't release it fast enough for the next hit. So you kind of have to play with. And you can see by the way the gain reduction bounced back up. You adjust the release time based on the song, on the tempo of the song. Without it, kind of boring, right? More attitude, right? Now you'll see later with the parallel compression, it's even more drastic when you start feeding it into that. So, but see right now the bass, it bothers me. It's like it's all down. So I need to tame that attack down a little bit. Move this attack down. There. See, it's softer now in the front end.